Can playing certain types of music complete certain kinds of karma?
Any moment can begin a new pattern of karma. Any moment can end a pattern of karma. We're in the time world, in the cow world, for the most part, materially speaking. Yeah. And so we are part of the fabric of infinite time pulses. Most not perceivable. Well, it's too subtle. And in fact, some speculate that this is the physical is just 10% of the event. So you can imagine how much more there is. Music is language. Language is culture. And there's just so much of that each one of us might need. It's like education. You only need so much of a certain type. You only need so much of a certain impulse, or pulsation, or cycle, or vibrations. We have a whole life form as a birth, beginning, and then it dies, so to speak, fades out. It's part of its vibration. Its vibratory cycle, life cycle. In the midst of that space, or a lifetime, you have many, many, many different, innumerable even, events that are part of other time cycles and other time patterns, say, that have a catastrophic effect upon your life and your destiny, your direction and your purpose. Sometimes you're reading something in a book and all of a sudden a line shows up. You haven't really been paying attention to the book, but all of a sudden a line shows up, a word shows up, and you take stock, you become awake or aware. Everything changes from there. Or you hear music, certain kind of music, and it can all stop and change for you right then and there. It's like a completion. When I played with McCoy Tyner in 1989, some would say it was like a beginning, it was actually an ending. It was a completion. So you play with McCoy, to go toe-to-toe with McCoy for 2 nights straight was a completion. It's like an end point, a fulfillment, culmination of all kinds of things, musically speaking. Right? Having to do with mastery, communication at a high level, and light, sound, see, presence, this world and other worlds, it all came to this culmination. After that particular event, I didn't need to hear the piano anymore. I was like done with the piano for maybe a couple of years. I was done with it. Didn't need to hear that kind of sound. There was so much of it. It was so intense, so powerful, because I was not just listening to it, I was feeding it and being in response to it, say, reacting to it, going back and forth. For those who know how I play and who know how McCoy plays, very interactive. He's going to play to you, you're going to play to him, it's going to intensify what it is. So it's intense. And it was completed. So it ended after that. The whole phase ended. Back then. Everything changed after that. There's no interest in the piano as jazz or anything else after that point. It had to be recreated, it had to be I guess you might say invested in purpose and function in terms of what I needed at that point. I think perhaps even it reached the point where I was playing a little bit more keyboard because I had been so empowered, more or less unconsciously initiated into the sound of the piano that I became the piano to a certain degree. My mind had become the piano. So I didn't need a physical piano, but my mind had become the piano. So this is true. We don't know what point or what person or what thing it is that's going to be a catalyst to the ending or the beginning of a cycle of being, or a cycle of feeling, a cycle of hearing, a cycle of knowing, see? A cycle of doing, or a cycle of ending, see? The end cycle.
So does a culmination like that have preliminary aspects to it? Is there something you need to go through before you're ready to complete that with someone like
Well,
McCoy?
when we're talking about these things, we're not talking about the obvious in all cases, right? We're not talking about the obvious. You go to a ball game and say, well, after that it's over. I just want to see this last championship game or whatever it is, and then it's over. That's not what I'm talking about. It's not like evolutional termination. It's not like a self-created, well, this has got to end here, which is not bad. It should be that way too. But then these things are, that I'm talking about, a deeper ending. Because after it, you don't know what happened. You have an idea because you're a part of the process. But then you're left with so much less. And thus there's so much more. Because you have so much less that you went into it with this growth, so to speak. Rebirth. New pattern. That's at a deeper spiritual psychic level. It's not only karmic. You wonder if the karmic thing has anything to do with that. Because there's the karmic time as the machinery, and then there's like spirit times, like time to boom, wake up. Beyond the karmic. So a lot of people say, well, this is karma. No, because it's happening. No. Sleep is karma. You can be asleep in karma. You're in the karma of sleep. We're talking about different karma. When you wake up, it's different. Waking karma. A waking condition. Then it's not even karma, but we can call it that. Because it happens in a way that you refer to it as karma because it seems to be conditional, but it's really using the conditional. The conditional isn't creating it. It's using the conditional because the conditional is a constant, but it doesn't always happen. So there has to be another factor involved there. Beyond time. Perhaps it's more the element of the dimension of space having its way with time.
So would you say that in any moment we're both beginning and ending various karmas?
Not obviously. But at the cellular level, that may be the case. When you have millions of cells dying, millions of cells, firing up. So is that part of it? Is that the universe? Yes. Is that what I'm talking about? Somewhat, but not exactly. Because that's happening all the time, so that's not what I'm talking about. You don't miss anything, one way or other, thinking about it. It's just constant. It's like breathing. It's only when you stop breathing, you talk about breathing, really. But as long as you're breathing, you're cool about breathing.
Can these culmination points go unrecognized?
All the time. So people are warned about things by their own consciousness, their own intelligence, by their own inner guidance center, warned. And they know they're warned, because sometimes when they're warned and they ignore it, and they know they ignore it, but they forget that they ignore it, and then something happens, and then they have that deja vu and say, oh, I was warned about this, but I didn't act on it. What's wrong with me? I didn't see this coming. I forgot about it. I was warned about it. I had a little dream about that. And all these things become obvious, that we're being continually warned, but we're so distracted by the importance, right, of our self stuff. And we missed the boat. We missed the pier, we fall into the drink. And we have to swim out. How did I do that? Well, you were stepping. You forgot you were stepping off. You were walking. Not paying attention. So part of the spiritual process is learning how to pay attention. See? And not to have this sense that, well, because you're involved in the machinery, you're paying attention. No, you're not paying attention. You're just involved in the machinery. You're distracted by it, so you're giving distraction attention to it, but not real attention.
So is life a series of phases that we go through?
No doubt. There's no doubt about that. How you quantify that is relative to your culturing, your intelligence and the system that you were brought into to judge what is this and what is that, what is good, what is bad, and what it is you need to do or not do. And what begins or what ends in your case. We're talking about catastrophic beginnings and endings. We're talking about just casual, oh, it's time for me to do this, so that began. We're going to eat, this is the beginning. I'm not talking about that. It's an end point. An end point. Game change point. And it may come as a surprise. You can think about it afterwards and say, well, I've thought about that, not enough for it to happen. And when it happens, it doesn't matter what you think. There's no turning back. It's reality. Modification. Hopefully it's a step up. So you don't have to worry about going back, because you say, no, I'm not going back down, I'm going forward up, so to speak.
So does the catastrophic, let's say, interrupt the mechanical aspects of life?
Big time. Can't happen that way. Some of the greatest things come out of accidents, catastrophes. Some of the wisest things show up in the midst of these, what seem to be demolishments, right? Being demolished. Your life is being controlled, taken over, destroyed in a split second. Yeah. Sudden, very forced awakening. Right? Hopelessness, helplessness, openness, vulnerability to the time world. Say, wow, you might realize at that point you were never in the time world. You only imagined you were in the time world. You believed you were in the time world, but you were never in the time world at that point.
Would you say that the catastrophic transcends positive and negative?
The catastrophic is the continual event of reality. It's always here. It's always what it is. That might have to do with what is called realization. It's a sudden kind of shock of what is. And that the is what enables you to do anything. It's like the source reality. See, the mother, or the father, however you want to see it for what it is. See, the reality of being, beyond change, the reality of being. See. Some would say pure being, just being, now being, only being, true being, so on, so forth. So part of it. It doesn't need description. It doesn't warrant description. It is not about description, but we have references to help other people understand what we might in fact be experiencing or being distracted by at any point along the track of a phase of consciousness.
So at some level are all beings dying and being reborn in each moment?
It's the only way it can be, obviously. Every breath is inhaling some life and exhaling your life at the same time. Terminating yourself, self-terminating. Living is self-terminating. You're living into dying, you're dying into life. See? So we are in the midst of the paradox of being and not being. And it's a beautiful realization.
Can we, let's say, become unhinged by the recognition of the dying and...
You're already unhinged. That's why you need the recognition, so you can be properly hinged. Stay properly hinged.